Okay, if we make a start, my name's Paul Masterman, and I've been asked by CAN to chair this afternoon's session. Welcome everyone. Hope you're having a good lockdown, or if nothing else, a good Thursday during lockdown. This is the latest in a series of bite-sized learning events that CAN has mounted over the last few months of the COVID epidemic, and good for them, because it gives us a chance to take a little bit of time out and learn some new things. And as John Paul Danone, who runs the show, says to us always, if you just take one thing out of these sessions, then I think they're worth half an hour of your time. Please take some time out while you listen to this, grab a sandwich, go on a walk, plug yourself in and go on a walk. We won't judge you in terms of your behaviour. We can't even see you, but we're glad that you're with us. We've only got about 30 minutes, and we've got several people, as you'll see, speaking this afternoon. And therefore we may not have time for questions, but please, on the chat, let us have your questions and comments as we go on. I'm sure we can get back to you. On the call today, speaking is what for me is probably one of the most impressive panels I've seen for some time. Just quickly running through who is who, as it were. We've got John Paul himself from CAN. He's co-founder and sales director at CAN. We have James Morton from Alive with Ideas, who also in his past has been a public service communicator. We've got Paul Beecroft, who's a comms business partner at Dorset Council. And I know from personal experience that Dorset's doing some really good work across a whole range of activities. There's Lauren Castle as well, who's marketing officer at Shared Lives in Wiltshire. And last but by no means least, our good friend Pete Jackson, who's improvement director for the Association of Directors of Social Services in the West Midlands. Today we're talking about social care, and specifically how do we communicate better to recruit, retain and support our social care staff, particularly in local authorities and partner organisations. It seems to me that the focus, perhaps quite rightly, for a lot of the sort of media coverage at the moment is the horrific pressure the NHS is under. But I think too, there is somewhat of a hidden pressure, a hidden emergency in social care, and real pressure on social workers, and some gaps in the workforce for social worker. These are people who through one of the worst emergencies this country is facing, are looking after our children, supporting families, supporting our mums and our granddads and grandmas, etc. They need the country's support. And they need resources and they need investment. And it's great to be seeing some colleagues today who are talking about how they're providing that support to this much needed profession. So that said, let's get going. And I want to initially hand over to John Paul, who's going to just take you through how he and his team supported Stoke-on-Trent Council to put together a business case for an invest to save approach to social care campaigning. John Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, this was really meant to be presented by the team at Stoke, but unfortunately I haven't been able to make it today. So I'm going to do my best job of getting the basic points across. Often very worthy communications campaigns suffer from less budget than they would ideally have. And I watched Emma put this business case together, Emma Rogers from Stoke put this business case together with her colleague Emily, and thought it might be worth sharing. Hopefully you can take something away from what they went through. So the first point to make is around how you go about building a business case. Emma suggests first step is you engage the senior leaders, the people responsible, and you work with them to define the current situation accurately. This helps build buy-in later on, but particularly around levels of agency use, ongoing recruitment plans, costs involved with that and complexity. And then gain an agreement, an initial agreement before the full plan particularly, and this is Emma's words, that it needs to address a wicked problem for them. So like a real big, keep them up at night kind of problem that the campaign is focused on achieving. Then go away, research. You understand the user experience, the applicant experience. Are there problems there that need to be fixed before you bring traffic to the activity? See what other people are doing. James will be sharing shortly some campaigns creative, so you can see what's going on. Also check out commsfiles.co.uk. That's where loads of public sector campaigns are shared for people who are planning activities. Create really simple, easy to understand objectives. So this campaign will reach an audience of approximately this, will generate hopefully this many applications, which will lead to, on average, this many hires, and should achieve an annual saving of X. In Stoke-on-Trent, their objective was to target hire 40 new children's social care workers directly. Then come back to that senior team with a big idea. So it brings all of the research, all of the understanding into something that is cohesive and something that they can get behind, and continue to get their buy-in to support the campaign as it runs. Once the campaign's up and running, don't create a comms vacuum. Keep everyone involved and everyone enthused about the campaign with regular reporting, and start to model things like cost per recruit, cost per hire, because that will enable you to, when the next budgeting phase comes through or the next planning phase comes through, model future budgets based on what's actually been achieved for your organisation. So this idea of learning together, identifying cost per outcome, very important. That is the summation of what Emma passed on to me. Just so you know as well, that campaign has been running now for a couple of months, and they've recruited 33 social workers in Stoke.
Thanks for that. I mean, two things that strike me about that quite powerfully. One is that I think Paul Beecroft from Dorset, your title, at least recently, was comms business partner. So that idea of that you're not communicators, you're partners in your colleagues' business, and you need to be solving not their communication problems, but their business issues through communication approaches. And I think that's powerful. The other thing that I thought sounded outstanding in terms of the work that Stoke-on-Trent has done is around this idea that comms is not a cost, it's an investment in the future of your service, but in the shorter, medium term, actually saving money on things like agency workers and so on and so forth. John Paul also mentioned creativity, and I'll quickly pass now to James Morton, who works for Alive with Ideas. I've never worked with Alive with Ideas, but I've seen their work, and it is very highly creative work. And James just wants to talk through how he and his clients met the challenges and constraints in campaigns that they ran in. He has helped run in Stoke and Dorset. James.
As Paul said, we are Alive with Ideas. We're a creative agency based down in Hampshire. We like to see ourselves as a little bit of creativity in your corner. If you're struggling for creative inspiration, or more likely at the moment, time, we can hopefully help you out in some of the areas that you can see on the screen there. We just wanted to say a quick word actually to everyone, not necessarily in relation to the social care topic that we're talking about, but just in relation to everyone hoping, I think, that 2021 was going to be a bit brighter and a bit easier for everyone. Not really panning out that way so far, but, you know, we think you guys do an amazing job, and just to say, you know, thanks for everything, and keep going with it. But on to the topic, which is social care. So yeah, hopefully what we can do is just bring to life a couple of the other speakers, you know, work today, and show you a bit about how we work with Dorset, and then also Stoke that JP just mentioned. So starting off with Dorset, we were approached and asked to see if we could come up with a creative approach to help Dorset recruit. not only social workers, but to encourage new people to think about social care as a career, to perhaps bring them in from a different type of work background, perhaps a change of direction in career, and to really try and paint social care as a career for people from all backgrounds. So we sort of looked at the message, and we looked at how we may approach this in a creative way, and what we wanted to try and really bring across was that, caring is a career, and we ran those two ideas in parallel to create the career visual that you can see on your screen now. But certainly the other part of the creative was about bridging that gap for people, painting the picture and putting it in people's minds that they could see themselves as a carer. So it was very much about us taking a photographic led approach to this and using people like you. That was kind of the basis on which we were working, showing people like themselves in the visuals, doing work as carers, so that could kind of bring that to life for people. As I say, this was trying to reach out to people who are perhaps considering a change of direction in career or a new career. So really sort of showing them in that carer context. I'm not going to steal Paul's thunder because he's on next, but using CAN services, we were able to target those visuals in a very specific way to specific demographics, and the campaign so far I think has proved to be pretty successful. But I'll let Paul fill you in on that. So that was the approach with Dorset. JP's just addressed kind of the background to the Stoke brief. This wicked problem that they had that we were trying to address, and we approached Stoke in a slightly different way. Again, what the emphasis we really wanted to put, or the emphasis that was needed in the campaign, was that people could really help to shape the future of children. That was kind of one of the core messages that we were trying to bring across, that you could have a real impact on the lives of children. So taking that whole sort of shaping concept, and obviously sort of feeding into the to the sort of the child aspect of of what the job's about, we came up with this concept around the plasticine models and how you can help to shape children's lives and be great role models, and sort of really playing on that whole shaping concept. It provided us with flexibility to create some great digital content and use that across a range of different channels. I'll just sort of share some of the other bits and pieces with you now as well. So yeah, being able to sort of use some really sort of bright, impactful colors, obviously be able to use the plasticine models to sort of share different demographics. But one of the other things we were really keen to do and try and bring across through the Stoke campaign was really share real life experience of social workers, so that people could kind of hear it from the horse's mouth. Quite difficult to do that in the middle of the pandemic, given that we couldn't go out and record people. So I'm just going to play you a short clip now of the approach we took, which was to actually record audio of a real social worker, about their experiences, but overlay that with animation based on the plasticine models that you can see. So I'll just play a snippet of that just so you can see, how that looked. But and I'm hoping you guys can see and hear this as well.
I'm Jake Finney. I'm a social worker in safeguarding and child protection. There was a teenager who had been through significant domestic abuse. A lot of people said, you can take over this case now, but there is very little that you can do. She will never meet with you without the perpetrator being there. And it took a lot of work to build a relationship with her so that she could trust in me. And eventually, after a period of months, was able to disclose everything that was happening with this partner. And then I did a lot of work with her to build a relationship between her and her family, so that when she was able to finally realise the position that she was in and how much abuse she was being subjected to, she had a place of safety. Once she was able to make that extremely brave jump, I did a lot of work with her around her being able to realise she's not this complete nothingness that this perpetrator had persuaded her she was built.
I really don't want to cut that off because I'm sure people might want to see it, but I'm aware of time. So I just wanted to give you a little show of kind of how that looked. Thank you very much for listening to us. There's a couple of ways you can contact us on the screen there, should you want to. And obviously happy to speak to anyone afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, James, for that really insightful stuff, which I'll come to it in a second. But it really strikes home to me the point that we all like being creative and enjoy the creative aspects of our work. But what James has demonstrated in those two case studies is creativity with a purpose, creativity that is going to eventually protect and save lives. So there's a real business reason to being creative about the approach that you take. The other thing that strikes me, particularly in terms of the Stoke activity, is that, I mean, despite my youthful good looks, I've been around for quite a long time, and I do remember the days when social work recruitment was just about bunging an advert in Community Care with a picture of a social worker smiling like a drain with one of his or her clients. And the world has moved on significantly. And that idea of Stoke-on-Trent, that the communication is about engagement and conversation with the marketplace, who in turn can help you shape not just the campaign, but the way that you manage social work in your authority, I think is really strong. The other thing, finally, which was implied in James's piece, was the importance of insight, really understanding your audience and who you're working with. And that's why I'm glad now to pass over to Paul Beecroft from Dorset, who is going to talk to us about insight specifically, and how insight gained from earlier campaigns have been applied and adapted to other areas of social care. So over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. I'm a communications business partner at Dorset Council, and I work for adult social care, housing and community safety. As James mentioned earlier, we worked with Alive and with CAN to pull this campaign together. We looked at various different creatives. How can we reach target audiences? What can we do? How can we make it different? It was really born from looking back over the kind of previous 6 months of last year, and the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, we all know has had a major impact. In Dorset, and sort of relative to the rest of the UK, we've got a much higher share of employment output and businesses across the hardest hit sectors from COVID, such as tourism, leisure, entertainment industry. Almost 50,000 people in the Dorset Council area were furloughed last year, and it was estimated that 75% of those were aged 25 or younger, and a further 40% would never be able to return to their former employment because of redundancies and business closures. So we thought, okay, care sector is struggling to recruit and retain. How can we get more people working in social care? So we looked at various ideas, and we came up with the creatives that James shared. How we're doing it, we've got a tailored campaign. It's a programmatic campaign. It's targeted across digital advertising, which include pop-ups and banners on news, entertainment and shopping websites, which JP is placing for us. We have social media adverts and organic posts. We have banners and written articles in all of our e-newsletters, media relations, and our biggest asset is via our Dorset councillors and our town and parish councils and our partner organisations, who are really helping us to spread the word. Really quick, because I'm conscious of time. So the adverts just for this section of the campaign have had 1.458 million impressions since October. It's a minimum reach of 212,000. We've had over 9,000 direct click-throughs, which has resulted in 465 basic registration of details through the landing page, 209 complete applications, and we are just going through the process of analysing what that correlates to in terms of hires, with a click-through rate of 0.62%, which is absolutely fantastic. We launched the social care career idea back in October, And our next steps are we're branching out and we're running additional campaigns now targeted at people interested in becoming shared lives carers. Again, it's something that we want to recruit to, because that in turn will help the social care market if we can have additional people helping people in their own homes. We're going to target people who have been volunteering during the pandemic and who may not have jobs to go back to, and finally targeting people who want to set up their own micro enterprise to deliver care in people's homes on a very local basis. So it might be on a street basis or a village basis. I think that's kind of all I've got time for, but we will at the end of the session, JP is going to circulate everything, and included in that will be our full campaign briefing and all of my contact details if anybody's got any questions they want to ask me.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, Paul. Great background to your work. Again, two things strike me. One is this is about real life, isn't it? You talking about those powerful percentages of people who may never return to work or return to the work they were doing in some of those most affected sectors shows how important our work is. The other thing that you touched on, which I think is, we haven't got time to develop today, but is around the role of councillors. Most of us work for democratically elected organisations, and the role of members in communicating and helping to change behaviour is key, because they live in and work and deliver advice in the heart of their communities. The other thing you mentioned was data. You know, a lot of what you're doing is driven by data, and you're measuring using data. It's about being smarter at what we do, and that is a nice segue into Lauren Castle's session. She works for Shared Lives in Wiltshire, and perhaps Lauren, you can explain what that is. It's quite new to me, at least, and how you've used smarter targeted communications to recruit for that organisation. Lauren.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'll start by just giving you guys a little bit of an overview of what Shared Lives actually is. So it's a scheme that helps vulnerable adults to live as part of a family. So they live within the carer's house. And that's the place where they receive the support and care and companionship that they need. So for those of you that don't know, Shared Lives is actually a national scheme, but in Wiltshire, we're run by Wiltshire Council. And it's such a unique model because it's so person-centred and tailored towards the individual. And it really concentrates on that family inclusivity and that community life. So from learning independent skills such as cooking and seeking employment to sort of dog walking or pursuing a new hobby, Shared Lives empowers individuals to do what matters most to them. And I think that's what makes it so different. It's all about building those meaningful relationships with the carer that we match them with, whilst they also receive that care and support that they need in a safe and suitable family environment, which, you know, in today's climate is even more important. So Shared Lives is different for everyone. We can offer respite support or long-term placements. And some people really become an integral part of their carer's family. You know, they go on holidays together, they go to family events together. Our longest placement in Wiltshire is actually nearly 30 years now. But for other people, Shared Lives is a fantastic stepping stone towards more independent living. It's a chance for them to grow in confidence and connect with their local communities. So I really think it's an incredible model, and I think that even more councils across the UK could be launching their own schemes right now with the help of the national body Shared Lives Plus. So my role came into play nearly a year and a half ago, and over the last couple of years, Wiltshire Council really began to see that Shared Lives is the most cost-effective form of adult social care, saving councils nearly £34,000, give or take, per year per person placed. But more importantly than that, it's a scheme which achieves fantastic outcomes for vulnerable adults. So I joined the scheme in November 2019, and at that point, Shared Lives in Wiltshire was relatively small. They weren't growing very much, and you know, to give you an idea, they'd only recruited 2 new carers in the previous year. So that really became our main goal, and our main priority was to grow and to recruit more of these amazing families willing to share their homes and their skills with people, so that more and more people around Wiltshire could benefit from that family life and that care and that support. So to do this, I created some fresh new branding with the Wiltshire Council comms team. I developed a suite of assets and a sort of a really strong social media presence, I think, as we sort of launched our recruitment campaigns. At the beginning, face-to-face events were quite an effective way of raising awareness and promoting the amazing work of our carers. But, you know, as we all know, as we moved into such a virtual world, I would definitely say that Facebook in particular has been the most effective means of marketing and recruitment for us. You know, from targeted posts to relevant messaging, depending on the time of year, and good news stories. All of these elements really helped make our campaign successful. And Twitter's helped us as well. That's helped us more to sort of spread awareness and engage professionals working with possible referrals. Again, a really important element of our goal to grow. So just to give you sort of an idea of how this worked for us in Wiltshire, during my first 6 months in post, we received interest from 54 people, and some of which were out of county, some of which didn't take their interest further, but 22 of those people were recruited and now share their hearts and homes with the people that need it most. And we've only grown and increased our recruitment since then. And even during these difficult times, we rely on social media even more to promote, grow and diversify our scheme. You know, 52% of our success in the first 6 months came from Facebook targeted posts. So as you can imagine, everyone was quite pleased with our rapid growth, and I'm really happy that we've managed to sustain that at the moment as well. And before I go, I think we're nearly out of time, I just wanted to say as well that for me personally, social media and creative and engaging multimedia that's, you know, really engaging and creative has been key. For me, it's all been a bit concentrated and really important to concentrate on what our service users and our carers have to say about shared lives. It's really been about putting their voices and their experiences at the heart of our marketing campaigns in order to inspire people to learn more about our scheme and encourage them to join us as carers as well. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lauren. I said at the beginning that everybody should take one thing from this session at least, and that's my one thing. Shared lives is something I'm going to have a look at in a bit more detail, because you're obviously doing some great work locally and nationally. The other point that you make, I think, is a strong one. This is about people and people's voices and people's engagement, and that's why it's interesting here about the real success of Facebook, which was also the source of some great engagement in some work I did last year around recruiting return to work social workers for the adult social services market in the West Midlands, where one of the main ways we targeted and drove people onto our website was via Facebook groups. So that's a good lesson to learn, and also a nice way of introducing someone who's a great guy and a friend, but also a client of mine. So I need to say that whatever happens, which is Pete Jackson from ADAS in the West Midlands, who's going to have a brief look in the final few minutes of our session around what's coming down the line for social care recruitment in the near future. Pete.
Well, thanks, Paul, and thanks, JP. What a fantastic session. So I could talk for hours having heard all those inputs so far, but I just want to make 3 points maybe. First of all, we often, adult social care, people come to us with solutions for how they can sort out social care. Often those solutions aren't necessarily based on any problems. They're based on things that people think will work in social care that have worked elsewhere. And I think what we've been trying to change in our region is very much around seeing social care as a asset rather than as a problem. I reel off these figures: 177,000 people in the West Midlands work in adult social care, bigger than health, more people than the car industry, but who knows that? And the fact is that the Clap for Carers events last year sort of brought the care sector into the spotlight for the first time, perhaps ever. But they were soon quite quickly moved away. And I think that some of the lessons from the work that we did with Paul JP in last year taught us an enormous amount of lessons. And I think this is a job for all of us for the next decade, actually, and ongoing. And I think that some of the creativity, some of the examples that you've given today are things that social care isn't good at. It isn't good at creativity. It isn't good at engagement, but actually it's full of great stories, of great people doing wonderful things, often in a very humble and shy way. So they're not very good at selling themselves. So I think the Care for Carers, the carers campaigns, that sort of thing, is saying there's a wonderful range of skills required, of people required. And actually, how do we reach those people is at the heart of actually everything that we should be doing at the moment, and everything that we need to do to maintain social care in a way that is able to sustain people living longer, healthier lives, living well, and doing things that actually makes their lives meaningful beyond their years. So I don't want to go on, I could go on, but I just want to say it's been a great session, and I've relearned some brilliant things already, which I want to follow up. And I think there's a market for you guys and an area of expertise in your local authorities that actually social care is crying out for. And you need to keep banging away at it, and you need to find new ways of engaging with your adult social care, children's services directorates to make sure that they're aware of some of the things that are in your collective toolboxes, because they're a bag of tricks. Absolutely brilliant. So thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Pete, and thanks everyone. We're doing quite well, just a minute over our time. So thanks for speakers, some really interesting work there that we need to learn more about. Thanks for listening and watching to this webinar. I just wanted to pick up finally just a point I think James made earlier about how we're all feeling and how we're all doing. This is important work we're doing here as communicators. Good communications is fundamental to people leading good, successful lives. And however hard it feels at the moment, you're all doing good work. And, you know, in many ways, like the vaccination program, you're making history. So as James says, you have got this, and we've got your back to do even better. So thanks for listening. See you soon and have a good day.